PNC News First is presented by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Pizza Hut, we're taking pizza where it's never been before. Taco Bell, the only place where you live Moss. Guam Auto Spot. Colgate, the #1 brand recommended by dentists. And IT&E, Life in Motion.
Live from the Broadcast Center, Akata, Tumon, Guam. Broadcasting in Guam and Saipan. Here's Janella Carrera and Clint Rigel with Donna De Jesus and Rebecca Elmore. PNC Sports with Leo Bayumo and Weather with Chelsea Cruz. This is PNC News First.
Hafa and good evening and welcome to PNC's News First. We're live from the Broadcast Center, Akanta, in the heart of Tumon. I'm Janella Carrera. Thanks for joining us. Your top story tonight, Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio gave Breitbart News an exclusive interview in which he questioned the accuracy of the U.S. missile defense system against a North Korean attack. Tenorio told Breitbart that there's a, quote, sort of checked optimism with regards to the U.S. military's ability to protect Guam from any potential missile attack from North Korea. He told the publication, in part, that residents of Guam need to have confidence in the U.S. military's defense systems because we have to. However, he went on to talk about a recent missile defense test that was reported to be successful on only 1 out of 4 tries. He told Breitbart, quote, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what do you mean missed? 1 out of 4, end quote. Tenorio also told Breitbart that it would only take 8 or 9 minutes for a North Korean missile to hit Guam, which, quote, leaves little room for error, end quote. Tenorio went on to say that a war with North Korea could doom this U.S. territory's economy. The lieutenant governor says this is because of Guam's heavy reliance on tourism as a major pillar of its economy. The lieutenant governor told Breitbart that a conflict in North Korea would give South Korean visitors and Japanese visitors the jitters. Japan and South Korea are the 2 largest visitor markets for Guam. Tenorio's chief of staff, Joe Duenas, on the other hand, told Breitbart that the chance of North Korea hitting Guam is, quote, 0.001%. Meantime, health insurance for thousands of GovGuam retirees is in jeopardy of being suspended as the Department of Administration has not made a payment for several months now. All 3 contracted insurance agencies for GovGuam confirmed that collectively they are owed over $10 million. Here's more. All 3 health insurance agencies providing coverage to GovGuam retirees have put the Department of Administration on notice for non-payment, specifically for the GovGuam retirement account. The total amount, about $10.2 million. That amount represents about 6 to 7 pay periods for all 3 insurance carriers contracted by GovGuam to provide health insurance coverage to all GovGuam retirees and their dependents: Calvo Select Care, Take Care, and Net Care. The largest account balance is with Calvo Select Care at $9 million. Plan Administrator Frank Campillo confirms that the amount represents close to 3 months of non-payment, or 7 pay periods. Next is Net Care at about $700,000, which is also about 3 months behind, according to Netcare's Plan Administrator Jerry Crisostomo. Take Care Insurance is also owed at least $565,000, which represents about 6 pay periods of non-payment. All 3 insurance carriers have sent letters of delinquency to the Department of Administration demanding payment. PNC obtained one of those letters sent by Take Care Health Plan Finance Administrator Alicia Iseki on May 29th. In it, she says they are, quote, seriously concerned with the lack of payment for medical and dental premiums for retirees. She adds, quote, because of the severe delinquency, immediate payment of the unpaid retirement fund government share premiums is required in order for the retirees and their dependents to continue with their medical and dental care, end quote. Iseki also cites Take Care's policy, which says that they can, quote, terminate coverage of one or more individual covered persons for non-payment of premium without terminating this agreement to other covered persons for whom premiums have been received by the company, end quote. This isn't the first time GovGuam retirees were in jeopardy of losing their health insurance coverage. In fact, just before the end of fiscal year 2016, retirees were in a similar situation. However, Speaker B.J. Cruz introduced a measure to appropriate approximately $13 million from that fiscal year's deficit reserve to cover the past due amount. And calls to DOA Director Christine Belletto were not returned as of news time. Well, it's taken dozens and dozens of sex abuse lawsuits to be filed, and now, much to the shock of the Catholic community, among those to be named is an alleged child molester is Guam's beloved Archbishop Flores, the first Chamorro Archbishop of Guam. With the late Archbishop Flores now named, this marks the third bishop with Guam ties to be accused of sexual abuse. The first was Archbishop Anthony Aparon, who's facing a canonical trial in Rome. And then there's retired Saipan Bishop Emeritus Tomas Camacho, who once served on Guam as a priest. This latest lawsuit against Archbishop Flores was filed by a 62-year-old man with the initials AJR. He says it happened at the old Agana Cathedral when he was 11 years old. AJR says he had just come from using the restroom when Flores instructed him to follow him to the rectory. While inside, AJR claims Flores pulled up his robe and exposed his private parts to him, then tried to pull AJR closer to him. However, the 11-year-old kicked Flores in his groin and ran away. At a press conference today, coadjutor Archbishop Michael Burns expressed his disbelief.
To have three brother bishops now accused is, it's a shock to me, and a grief, really. You know, it's I don't even know how to say. It's more like a kind of a grief. Again, especially for those who've been harmed.
And you can read the lawsuit filed by AJR online at pacificnewscenter.com. Also filed in federal court over the weekend were 3 more complaints against the church. PNC's Donna DeJesus has a story on these latest lawsuits.
There are now well over 70 recorded lawsuits filed against the Archdiocese of Agana through attorneys Kevin Fowler, Anthony Perez, and David Lujan, who represents 61 victims to this point. Since the beginning of the month, there have been 6 new filings. These latest victims are represented by attorney David Lujan. Plaintiff E.V. tells an all-too-familiar tale in his complaint, saying that abuse from Louis Briard began in the early 1970s when E.V. was a teen. Like other victims before him, E.V. states that Briard would use the pretext of serving for an early morning mass to get E.V. to spend nights at the Malolo Parish Rectory and would molest him there. Briard reportedly rewarded boys by taking them to restaurants. As a scoutmaster, Briard took E.V. and other boys swimming and camping, where he would grope the boys during weekly outings. SMT accuses more than just Briard in his complaint. His story regarding Briard is similar to EV's, having taken place at the Mangilaw Parish instead. But SMT goes on to name others as his abusers. In the early 1970s, SMT was about 10 years old when Mangilaw priest Juan Camacho abused him. He mentions in his complaint an incident in which Camacho was too drunk to drop altar boys home, so they slept over at the rectory. SMT adds that Camacho would have him and the other altar boys watch Camacho have sex with his girlfriend. Another abuser he names is Edward Pereira, who was a Boy Scout leader in the late 60s and early 70s. SMT alleges that Pereira would have older Boy Scouts bring SMT to his tent, where he would molest him. He's also accused of lining up SMT and other Boy Scouts and touching them inappropriately, and would reward them by giving them Boy Scout pins or badges. Another Boy Scout leader accused of sexually abusing boys was Miguel Salas, who was named in a complaint filed by SDE, who was 12 years old in 1955 when he claims the incidents occurred. SDE was part of the Sinahanya Boy Scout troop. He says Salas would molest him at Boy Scout outings as well as on parish grounds. When SDE's troop would sleep over at the Inarahan Parish to assist with church functions, he says Salas would fondle him and force SDE to touch his private parts. During a press conference this afternoon, Archbishop Michael Burns shared his thoughts on the growing number of victims who are coming forward.
Every single act of abuse, sexual or otherwise, is a betrayal of the trust that a priest or a bishop kind of inherits, just by virtue of the office. And to betray that trust, to and by especially in harming the most vulnerable is, anyway, it's unthinkable, but when it's put in your face, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of devastating.
All three of the victims are seeking $10 million each in damages. Reporting for PNC, I'm Donna De Jesus.
Also at today's press conference, Archbishop Michael Burns revealed that they are in the process of selling off one of their assets to be able to fund Hope and Healing Guam. The Archdiocese began this effort earlier this year when they hired a third party to establish Hope and Healing Guam, which is a nonprofit created to provide counseling and compensation to victims of clergy abuse. The organization was launched with $1 million in seed money, but the amount is clearly not enough to cover, as dozens and dozens of victims and survivors have called into the hotline within the first week of its launch. Archbishop Burns says a list was formulated of church assets that could potentially be sold.
I think nothing's been added to the list, but we're actually in process of selling one set of the assets right now. It's in process, so I really can't elaborate further on it.
So you can tell us which?
Yeah, right now, yeah. So, kind of, you gotta wait for the process to finish, right?
Archbishop Burns has made it clear that schools and church parishes are not a part of that list. Among those that are on the list is the controversial Redemptoris Mater Seminary property in Jonya. While that property has been returned to the Archdiocese's control, a lawsuit is still pending to ensure legal control of the property.
We've kind of made the initial list, but now the effort is to, make sure there's no title issues and making sure that we've got exact surveys of of the specific lots and that kind of thing. So it's still very much in a preparatory stage.
Archbishop Burns also could not give an estimate of the value of the property that they are in the process of selling. Well, as it turns out, the bomb threat that caused the judiciary of Guam to go on lockdown last Wednesday was made by a defendant who did not show up for a court hearing. According to a magistrate report, a female caller, later identified as 23-year-old Rita Camacho Flores, called the Superior Court of Guam and informed a court employee that there were 3 bombs in the building. She added, quote, "After the bombs explode, there will be someone shooting," end quote. This caused the court to go on lockdown, of course, while court marshals and probation officers took the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of building occupants. Court documents say that the caller ID revealed the call came from a prepaid cell phone, which police traced to Flores. Police reported that Flores was scheduled to self-surrender in court that day, but did not appear for her hearing. She was charged with terroristic conduct as a third-degree felony. Well, we have more news first coming up after this break. Stay with us.